Shalom, my friend. God doesn't bless potential. He blesses structure. Heaven never funds confusion. It multiplies what you build. You've been taught that divine blessing is random, that prosperity comes to those who pray the hardest or believe the strongest. But what if I told you that every person experiencing sustained abundance follows the same ancient pattern, whether they know it or not? What if blessing isn't about luck, timing, or even faith alone, but about becoming someone worthy of increase? My name is Rabbi Shimon, and I'm known as the Torah Life Architect. For over 2 decades, I've helped thousands of people discover that Torah isn't religion wrapped in ancient language. Torah is life design. It's the operating system for human flourishing that predates every psychology textbook, every business strategy, and every success methodology by thousands of years. Today, we're diving deep into something that will revolutionize how you think about money, success, and divine blessing. We're exploring the architecture of increase, and by the end of this episode, you'll understand why God only blesses what you build. Here's what most people get wrong about blessing. They think it's something that happens to them. They wait for lightning to strike, for the perfect opportunity, for their lucky break. But blessing isn't something that happens to you. Blessing is something that flows through you. And here's the key. It only flows through structures that can contain it. Think about water. Water always seeks the shape of its container. Pour water on flat ground, and it spreads everywhere, accomplishes nothing, eventually evaporates. But channel that same water through pipes, through dams, through irrigation systems, and suddenly it becomes life-giving. It powers cities. It feeds nations. It transforms deserts into gardens. Your life operates the same way. Blessing seeks structure. Increase requires architecture. God never pours abundance into something that cannot hold it, because waste is the opposite of divine nature. The Creator doesn't create chaos. He creates systems. This isn't about religion. This isn't about denomination. This is about universal principles that govern how energy, resources, and opportunity flow in this world. These principles work whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or completely secular. They work because they're built into the fabric of reality itself. Let me share 3 core Torah principles that will change everything about how you approach building wealth, creating opportunities, and positioning yourself for sustained blessing. Each principle has a name, an explanation, and a modern application that you can implement immediately. The first principle is form precedes flow. Nothing flows where nothing is formed. In the book of Exodus, we read about the Tabernacle, the portable sanctuary that the Israelites carried through the wilderness. But here's what most people miss. God didn't just appear randomly among the people. He waited until they built him a dwelling place. The divine presence required a structure, a specific architecture, before it would manifest. The tabernacle wasn't built haphazardly. Every measurement was precise. Every material was specified. Every process was ordered. Only when the structure was complete, according to divine specifications, did the presence of God fill the space. This reveals a fundamental law. The sacred responds to the prepared. Blessing flows into readiness. You don't get the promotion before you develop the skills. You don't receive the relationship before you become someone worthy of partnership. You don't experience financial increase before you create systems capable of managing it. Most people approach their finances like they're expecting manna from heaven. They want provision without preparation. They want increase without infrastructure. But manna had rules too. It had to be gathered daily. It had specific quantities. It spoiled if hoarded improperly. Even divine provision required structure. Here's how this applies to your life today. Before you ask for more income, build the systems to handle current income properly. Before you pray for the perfect job, develop the character and competencies that job requires. Before you seek that ideal relationship, become the person that ideal partner would want to be with. Your current financial situation isn't punishment. It's information. It's showing you exactly where your structures are weak, where your systems are broken, where your preparation is incomplete. God isn't withholding blessing from you. You're not ready to receive what you're asking for. But here's the beautiful thing. Readiness can be built. Structure can be created. Architecture can be designed. That's why I call myself the Torah Life Architect. We're not just hoping for better circumstances. We're engineering them. The second principle is order attracts increase. God multiplies what is organized, stewarded, and measured. Throughout Torah, we see this pattern repeatedly. Joseph doesn't just interpret Pharaoh's dream about 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. He creates a systematic storage and distribution program. He organizes the abundance during the good years to survive the lean years. The result, Egypt becomes the wealthiest nation in the region, and Joseph becomes the most powerful person after Pharaoh. Abraham doesn't just accumulate wealth randomly. He manages flocks, negotiates treaties, maintains relationships, and creates systems for growth. His wealth increases because he stewards it properly. Isaac continues the same pattern. Jacob refines it further. Each generation builds on the organizational principles of the previous generation. King Solomon's wealth isn't accidental. He creates trade systems, builds infrastructure, establishes international relationships, and organizes labor forces. His kingdom becomes legendary, not because he won the blessing lottery, but because he architected a system capable of generating and sustaining prosperity. The pattern is clear. God doesn't bless chaos. He multiplies order. Random efforts produce random results. Systematic efforts produce systematic results. If you want sustained increase, you need sustainable systems. Most people treat their money like it's a wild animal that they can't control. They earn it randomly, spend it emotionally, save it accidentally, and invest it hopefully. Then they wonder why their financial life feels unstable. But money is actually very predictable. It follows patterns. It responds to systems. It grows when managed properly and shrinks when neglected. The problem isn't that money is complicated. The problem is that most people never learned how to create financial architecture. Here's what order looks like in practical terms. You know exactly how much money comes in every month. You know exactly where every dollar goes. You have specific accounts for specific purposes. You measure your progress regularly. You adjust your systems based on results. You plan for both opportunities and emergencies. You don't hope for a good month. You engineer one. You don't wonder if you can afford something. Your system tells you immediately. You don't worry about unexpected expenses because your structure accounts for them. When you organize your resources properly, something remarkable happens. Opportunities start appearing. People start offering you better deals. New income streams develop naturally. It's not magic. It's mathematics. Organized money attracts more money because organized people become trustworthy. And everyone wants to do business with trustworthy people. The third principle is vessels define volume. Your income never exceeds your capacity because capacity is spiritual, not numeric. This is perhaps the most misunderstood principle in all of personal development. People think capacity means education or connections or market conditions. But capacity is actually about your internal architecture. It's about who you are when nobody's watching. It's about the size of your character, the depth of your wisdom, the strength strength of your integrity. In Torah, we learn about the widow who approaches the prophet Elisha during a time of severe financial crisis. She's about to lose her sons to slavery because she can't pay her debts. Elisha asks her a crucial question. What do you have in your house? She says she has nothing except a small jar of oil. Elisha doesn't give her money. He doesn't perform a miracle that creates wealth out of thin air. Instead, he tells her to gather empty vessels from her neighbors, as many as she can find. Then she's to pour her small amount of oil into those vessels. The oil continues flowing until every vessel is full. Then it stops. The miracle wasn't the oil. The miracle was the vessels. Her increase was limited only by her capacity to contain it. If she had brought more vessels, she would have received more oil. If she had brought fewer vessels, she would have received less oil. The blessing matched the structure she created to receive it. This is why some people can earn $1 million and be broke within 2 years, while others can start with nothing and build sustainable wealth over time. Income doesn't determine wealth. Capacity determines wealth. And capacity is built through character, systems, and spiritual development. Your current income isn't arbitrary. It's precisely calibrated to your current capacity. If you want more income, you need more capacity. If you want sustained wealth, you need sustainable character. If you want divine blessing, you need divine alignment. But here's the encouraging truth. Capacity can be expanded. Character can be developed. Spiritual architecture can be constructed. You're not stuck at your current level. You can grow into the person who naturally attracts and maintains the life you want. Now let me give you 8 practical action steps that will immediately begin building your financial architecture. These aren't suggestions. These are construction requirements for anyone serious about experiencing sustained blessing and increase. First, create a financial container. Open separate bank accounts for different purposes. Have an account for monthly expenses, an account for emergencies, an account for opportunities, and an account for giving. Your money needs addresses, not just amounts. Second, implement income buckets. As money comes in, immediately allocate it according to predetermined percentages. 10% for giving, 20% for savings, 30% for housing, 20% for living expenses, 20% for opportunities and growth. Adjust these percentages based on your situation, but make them automatic. Third, establish a giving framework. This isn't about religious obligation. This is about spiritual physics. Giving creates flow. Hoarding creates stagnation. Set a specific percentage of every dollar that flows out before you spend on yourself. It keeps your money moving and your heart open. Fourth, define spending rules. Before you buy anything non-essential, wait 24 hours. Before you make any purchase over a predetermined amount, consult your spouse or advisor. Before you spend money you don't have, remember that debt is always more expensive than patience. Fifth, implement weekly financial reviews. Every 7 days, look at your numbers. Where did money come from? Where did it go? What worked well? What needs adjustment? You can't manage what you don't measure, and you can't improve what you don't track. 6, create systems for both income and expenses. Automate everything possible. Set up direct deposits, automatic transfers, and scheduled payments. 7th, design Sabbath boundaries around money. Choose one day each week where you don't spend, don't work, and don't worry about finances. This creates space for perspective, gratitude, and spiritual renewal. It also proves to yourself that you control your money rather than being controlled by it. 8th, Develop multiple income streams systematically. Don't chase every opportunity randomly. Instead, focus on building 2 or 3 reliable income sources that align with your skills and serve real needs in the marketplace. Diversity creates stability, but only when each stream is properly developed. These 8 steps will begin transforming your relationship with money immediately. But to understand why they work so powerfully, let me tell you the story of Bezalel, the master architect who built the tabernacle in the wilderness. When God wanted to create a dwelling place among the people, he didn't choose the most religious person. He didn't choose the best prayer or the most faithful believer. He chose Bezalel, whose name literally means in the shadow of God. Bezalel was chosen because he had the skills, the wisdom, and the character necessary to build something worthy of divine inhabitation. But here's the remarkable part of the story. God didn't just give Bezalel the assignment. He also gave him supernatural wisdom, skill, and understanding. The Torah says that God filled Bezalel with divine spirit, with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge in all kinds of craftsmanship. This reveals a profound truth. When you commit to building something worthy of blessing, God enhances your capacity to build it. When you create structures that can contain divine flow increases. When you prepare yourself to handle more becomes available to you. Bezalel didn't receive this enhancement before he committed to the project. He received it because he committed to the project. The divine investment came after the human commitment, not before. God doesn't develop your capacity in the abstract. He develops your capacity in response to your dedication to building something meaningful. This is exactly what happens in your financial life when you implement proper architecture. As you build systems that can handle blessing responsibly, you become capable of receiving greater blessing. As you prove yourself faithful with small amounts, larger amounts become available. As you develop character that can sustain wealth gravitates toward you naturally. The transformation that occurs when you give God something substantial to bless is remarkable and measurable. Let me describe what happens when you stop hoping for random prosperity and start building systematic abundance. First, opportunities begin appearing with unusual frequency. This isn't coincidence. This is consequence. When you operate with integrity and system, people notice. When you manage resources responsibly, people want to entrust you with more resources. When you solve problems systematically, people bring you bigger problems to solve for better compensation. Second, your inner peace increases dramatically. Financial anxiety comes from uncertainty and lack of control. But when you have systems, measurements, and clear boundaries, uncertainty transforms into clarity. You know where you stand, you know where you're going, you know what you can and cannot afford. Peace isn't the absence of challenges. Peace is the presence of competence. Third, your finances become remarkably stable. Instead of dramatic ups and downs, you experience steady growth. Instead of financial emergencies, you have planned for contingencies. Instead of wondering if you can afford something, your systems provide immediate answers. Stability isn't boring. Stability is liberating. Fourth, your identity strengthens significantly. When you know you can be trusted with resources, when you know you can create value in the marketplace, when you know you can weather financial storms through proper planning, your confidence grows. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as an architect of solutions. Fifth, blessing becomes predictable rather than random. This doesn't mean life becomes perfectly smooth. It means you develop the character and systems necessary to turn challenges into opportunities, problems into profits, and obstacles into advantages. Blessed people aren't people who never face difficulties. Blessed people are people who have the architecture necessary to transform difficulties into growth. But I know some of you are thinking, Rabbi Shimon, this sounds great in theory, but I don't have enough money to create fancy systems. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. How can I build financial architecture when I can barely pay my bills? This is exactly the wrong way to think about architecture. Architecture isn't about having more money. Architecture is about managing current money better. You don't need more income to create a budget. You need a budget to handle more income. You don't need wealth to practice giving. You need to practice giving to develop the character that attracts wealth. Some of the most financially successful people I know started with almost nothing, but they started with something. They organized their $20 the same way wealthy people organize their $20 million. They practiced stewardship with small amounts until they could be trusted with large amounts. They built character when nobody was watching, so they could be blessed when everybody was watching. The widow with the oil didn't have much money, but she had empty vessels. She worked with what she had rather than complaining about what she lacked. The blessing came through her preparation, not despite her poverty. Your current limitation isn't your permanent condition unless you choose to make it permanent through inaction. Others are thinking, but Rabbi, doesn't God provide for his children? Doesn't the scripture say to consider the lilies of the field and the birds of the air? Shouldn't I trust divine provision rather than relying on my own planning? This objection reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of divine provision. God provides through natural systems, not instead of them. Birds don't sit in their nests waiting for food to fall from heaven. They build their nests systematically. They gather food consistently. They prepare for seasons appropriately. Lilies don't ignore the laws of botany. They grow according to natural principles of soil, water, and sunlight. Divine provision works through human preparation, not around it. God feeds the birds, but he doesn't throw food into their nests. God clothes the lilies, but they still have to grow according to natural law. God will provide for you abundantly, but he expects you to participate intelligently in the process. Trust without preparation isn't faith, it's presumption. Faith says, I will prepare carefully and trust God with the results. Presumption says, God will handle everything, so I don't need to do anything. One leads to blessing. The other leads to disappointment. The third objection I hear frequently is, this approach feels too practical, too focused on money and systems. Shouldn't spiritual people be more focused on spiritual matters rather than material concerns? This objection creates a false separation between spiritual and practical that doesn't exist in Torah thinking. The tabernacle was both profoundly spiritual and extremely practical. Every measurement was precise because the spiritual is expressed through the physical. Every material was specified because the divine inhabits the details. Every process was ordered because God is a God of order, not confusion. Your money is spiritual because you are spiritual. How you earn, spend, save, and give reveals your values, priorities, and character more accurately than your words ever could. Your financial decisions are spiritual decisions. Your economic behavior is a form of worship, whether you realize it or not. A person who manages resources responsibly is demonstrating faith in divine order. A person who plans carefully is showing respect for divine intelligence. A person who gives generously is participating in divine flow. The practical and spiritual aren't opposites. They're partners in creating a life worth living. Money isn't evil. The love of money is problematic, but money itself is neutral energy that amplifies whatever character you bring to it. If you have generous character, money makes you more generous. If you have selfish character, money makes you more selfish. If you have wise character, money makes you wiser. If you have foolish character, money makes you more foolish. The goal isn't to avoid money. The goal is to develop the character that handles money well. The goal isn't to escape material concerns. The goal is to master material concerns so they serve spiritual purposes rather than hindering them. Let me close with the most important truth I can share with you. You were not created to live a small life. You were not designed for struggle, scarcity, and limitation. You carry within your soul a divine blueprint for abundance, impact, and influence. But blueprints don't build themselves. Potential doesn't fulfill itself. Dreams don't construct themselves into reality. You have been given intelligence to create systems. You have been given wisdom to make good decisions. You have been given character to handle blessing responsibly. You have been given creativity to solve problems and serve needs. You have been given relationships to build networks of mutual benefit. You have been given resources to begin construction immediately. The question isn't whether God wants to bless you. The question is whether you're ready to be blessed. The question isn't whether increase is available. The question is whether you've created the architecture to contain it. The question isn't whether opportunities exist. The question is whether you've developed the capacity to recognize and act upon them. Your soul is the blueprint. It contains the complete design for the life you're meant to build. Your life is the construction project. Every day you're either building according to the divine design or allowing that design to remain unrealized. Every decision is either construction or destruction. Every habit is either architecture or entropy. The materials are available. The blueprints are accessible. The master architect is ready to supervise the project. The only thing missing is your decision to begin building systematically rather than hoping randomly. God doesn't bless potential. He blesses structure. Heaven never funds confusion. It multiplies what you build. Today you learned the architecture. Tomorrow you begin construction. Your soul is the blueprint. Your life is the construction. Shalom, my friend. Now let's build the life God designed for you.